Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Godless Government channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a treat for you today. I think you're going to enjoy this. And if at any time you're not having a great time, just click off, man. There's lots of other stuff to look at. All right, if it gets too intense for you, just look at something else. Okay? Well, my name is James Linden. I am your host, your prophet, your priest, and your king. The channel, Godless Government. We have a godless government because we are living in a godless universe. It's the only kind of government there is. Right? Godless, everything is godless. There just aren't any gods. Well, here we go. A Christian LARP. A Christian LARP. You know, I came across this idea and I thought I would just have some fun with you today here. What is a LARP? A LARP is a live action role playing game. Okay, live action role playing. And you might be familiar with these kinds of things like Renaissance fairs and stuff like that. Right, where the guys go and they get dressed up in these costumes. Okay, the Renaissance fair with the, drinking the drinks and eating the food, and the men are dressed the way they used to dress, and the ladies are dressed the way they used to dress, and they all play the musical instruments that they played, right? It's a world of make-believe. It's a world of pretend, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to suggest to you that the Christianity that we see today, presumably the Christianity that's always been in place, is nothing more than a LARP. Now, so it's a game where people play these roles. Okay, and basically, the game is to, quote, become more like Christ. Now, of course, we know almost nothing about Christ. It's not entirely clear it's a non-fictional person. We know a few stories that feature this person as a living character. But in terms of knowing the man, we probably know almost nothing. And again, this is assuming that we're talking about a historical character here. But the participants in this LARP, who are the participants? Well, these are the people who call themselves Christians. And recognize in this that these self-identified Christians cannot agree among themselves who the Christians are, or even the criteria that might be used to decide who's a Christian. Okay, whether Catholics are truly Christians, whether Protestants are truly Christians, whether Mormons are truly Christians, right? The truly, we like that. They're the fake ones, right? The Pentecostals, those are the fake ones. Jehovah's Witnesses, they're a cult. Not like us, we're not a cult, they're a cult. Right? We're the true Christians. And these participants, they physically portray their characters. All right? Part of the game, guys. They say they're going to battle their flesh like the Apostle Paul. That's right. We beat our body into submission. We're slaves of Christ. This is serious business here. We're going to live like these characters. And again, we don't know how any of these people actually live. Probably very little. If anything. How did Paul actually live? Was he really constantly either in prison or about to drown or getting, taking lashes, so forth, being in prison. We know very little. But we can pick any of these characters we like. So if we need to be tough, we need to endure, and we think Paul was tough and he endured, then we're going to be like Paul. If we think Jesus is tough and he endured and we need that, then we're going to be like Jesus, right? Or Moses, insert your character here, you see? And you can change your character at any time. That's what's so fantastic about it, right? I like to talk about Joseph. Well, you can be Joseph for the next 5 or 10 minutes, right? Then switch back over to, Peter. So these players pursue goals. What are the goals in this game? Well, become like Jesus. This is about as vague as you can be. Nobody knows what Jesus was like. We've got a few stories here and there, but it's hard to know which of them are authentic. Certainly the miracle ones are not authentic. You want to become like Jesus? You want to send demons into herds of pigs? Is that what you want? Is that how you get off? Well, you suit yourself in your LARP, your live action role-playing game. And it's important to understand that this is a fictional setting. What the Christians are doing, obviously they occupy space and have weight, so they're made of matter. But the setting here is fictional. Right? This is a fairy tale for adults. This is the land of make-believe here. They believe they are part of this thing called the body of Christ. They actually believe this. They actually believe this. And what is the body of Christ? Well, I don't know. What do you want it to be? It's also the bride of Christ. Okay. To become one or something? I don't know. This is some of this Christian nonsense. A very important part of the fictional setting is the Garden of Eden. Okay, we need Adam and Eve back there to totally screw things up, so we can't blame the deity. Right? Now, of course, the deity knew these two creatures, Adam and Eve, were going to sin. We're going to do the wrong thing. And presumably could have created the universe any way he wanted. But he chose to create it in such a way that Adam and Eve, when given the choice, would sin. God is responsible for that sin, for that reason. Okay, if you're a Christian, I know you don't want to hear that. It's all right. All right, if God knows it's going to turn out a certain way, and that's the way he decides to go, I mean, you can call it free will if you want, but the deity knew what people were going to do with their free will. You're not getting your deity off the hook. Unfortunately, this deity doesn't exist, so we don't have to be too worried about it. But as part of this fictional setting, we see all these things. There's a myth about the Great Flood, a myth about sin. Okay, there is no sin in the world. You are not a sinner. You can't sin. There is no sin. This is a purely made-up word, purely Christian word to describe something that simply is not true. Here we cannot possibly violate the laws of the deity. There is no deity. There's no sin. You can't sin, guys. Good news, right? You're not a sinner. Okay, you're a human being. That's it. And saying you're a sinner really doesn't add much to it, does it? I mean, if we're all sinners and we're all humans, I mean, you almost don't even need both terms. Unless you're going to say there were some people who weren't sinners. Okay, and then you get into this myth about who is sin and how sin started and so forth. It's all nonsense. Salvation, this supernatural realm where the deities live. Heaven and hell, other fictional places, purgatory. Jury's still out on that one. And these fictional settings, the Garden of Eden and so forth, they are represented by real-world environments. Okay, so we come together on Sunday and we reenact, we relive, we retell. Okay, we resurrect these old fictional stories to try to come up with some significance for our lives. Okay, in this fictional setting. And here's an important part here. We do this while interacting with each other. Okay, the church, if there is such a thing, church organizations, religious organizations, have done a great job of finding ways to get people to interact with each other, activities and so forth. Praying, attending church, evangelizing the neighbors, baptism, the Lord's Supper. Okay, all that stuff. The potluck. Okay, what we call, quote, fellowship. Another nonsense term. We like to interact with each other. And religion has certainly capitalized on that. And we do it in character. Extremely important notion here. Okay? Our Christian friends demand that if we're going to engage in the LARP, we have to at least make a good showing that we are believers. In other words, we have to pretend along with them. Okay? And it matters if you're a believer or an unbeliever. Okay? Because part of the game is it's the good guys against the bad guys. The sheep against the goats. Now, I don't mean they're constantly fighting, although Christians seem to like this. I'm just saying that it always seems like there's two teams, right? I mean, Christians, who are you supposed to evangelize? Do you evangelize the Protestants? Do you evangelize the Catholics? Do you evangelize the Mormons? Do you evangelize the Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you evangelize the Muslims? Right? Us versus them. The in-group versus the out-group. Right? And this whole system breaks down. The minute you have all believers, this system is destroyed. Because you have no out-group. There's no one to evangelize. Right? Who are you going to spew your nonsense to if everybody already believes it? I mean, you can only reinforce each other so much, and then you got to go find a new victim. Now, the outcome of the players' actions in this LARP, what do we know about those? Well, how does it work? The preaching, the infighting, the insulting, the gaslighting, all of the things that Christians do as part of Christianity, maybe not in their everyday life, but in their capacity as Christians. Apparently there are rules to this. But the rules are as bad as the vagueness of the player actions themselves and the outcomes of the player's actions. Okay, who are we supposed to rebuke? Well, the false teachers, of course. Well, who's that? Anybody that doesn't agree with me? There it is. Anybody that doesn't agree with me. These rules for carrying out the game. Well, it's their written rule book, specifically whatever specific portions support whatever you're doing. Okay, so if you're trying to really fire up the evangelism, you've got a little piece of the ancient text that you can look at. Right? If you want to vote for an incredibly immoral person that's running for office, you can find part of the book to justify that. It's all there. Just say, well, we don't really like it, but, the book doesn't prevent it. Book does not have final authority. It's whatever suits your fancy at that time. That's the part of the book you'll use. The other way that the outcomes of the player's actions are mediated or controlled in some way is by the determination of the consensus. Right? You can only do what people will tolerate, regardless of what the book says. At some point, you're dealing with real people in the real world. And if you don't have enough buy-in, and the people can't decide on what is clearly needed, you're not going to get action. So you need that consensus. You need these people to be somewhat pliable, but cohesive enough that they can actually do something. Okay, we need to decide, what time does the church service start? Is it 9 o'clock? Is it 10:30? Right? There's got to be some agreement generally on how things are going to be conducted. If not, you're not going to have the organization sticking together. And the players are the ones that decide all of this, ultimately, of course. Okay, the minute people realize that they really don't have to play this, and it really is not to their advantage to do it, Christianity will die that minute. People will just look at each other and say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? This doesn't advance our lives. This doesn't help us in any meaningful way. Let's just stop. Right? And of course, more people are doing that because they realize just that. Christianity and all the other religions as well really don't enhance their lives. And maybe they're not even designed to. Right? We've got to glorify that deity, no matter how much it sucks. Now here's another part of it. Event arrangers called gamemasters. Okay, these are the pastors. These are the people who govern this nonsense. Okay, they're an important part of this. There's always got to be somebody there at the spearhead deciding what's actually going to be permitted, what's actually going to happen. These gamemasters decide the setting and the rules. Okay? They decide, are we going to be a particular denomination? Are we going to go non-denominational? Okay, in the United States, you can make up your own denomination every 5 minutes. And which specific Bible rules are we going to follow? Now, you can't follow them all because they're contradictory. Okay, type in Bible contradiction and look at the YouTube videos. or look into it yourself. The most I see from my Christian friends is to say, well, these things are minor. Well, this doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't change the core doctrines, these contradictions and so forth. Well, okay. That's fine. If you want to play loose with the rules like that, hey, it's your game, man. It's your game. All right, it's your game. The Bible verses that you like, and they are going to be used to facilitate play. All right, what's going to be characterized as Christian? Is Trump going to be characterized as Christian? Well, maybe he himself is not a Christian, but he's doing some Christian stuff. Or he helps other Christians do Christian stuff. Well, all right. If that's the way you want to read the book, it's your LARP. It's your live action role playing. So it'll be interesting to see your comments on this. See if it makes sense to you. Live action role play. Look at the definition on Wikipedia. I just added a few red letters here. Once you see yourself outside of it and you're able to see the game for what it is, one way to look at it as simply role playing, pretending to be part of a big story, even though it has nothing to do with you.